Okay, guys, now we're going to take those 5 steps that we came up with, and we're going to go through those 5 steps in order to be able to get some graphing done for our quadratics. So first of all, in the middle of this, I'm going to label it. This is quadratic graphing. We're going to do the steps 1 through 5, which was in the last video. And this is part 1. So I'm going to do a couple examples on this one, and then we'll do a couple examples in the next one, and we'll kind of move on. So just like I did before, I'm going to attempt to kind of use this spot. I'm going to write and do all my work here and then eventually graph here. So we're going to start. I'm going to name this A, and I'm going to give you an equation. Y equals x squared minus 2x minus 8. So our first step that we had was to identify A, B, and C. Now, if I look at this, this x squared doesn't have a number in front of it, so I assume that that's 1. So remember, this is going to be my A, this is my B, and this is my C. So A is 1. B is -2, C is -8. So our first step was to identify that. Our second step was that we have to use our A value and determine if it opens up or down. So since A is 1, that means that it is a positive number. So that means that this graph opens up and it has a minimum. Okay, step 3. We have to plug things in to find our axis of symmetry. Now I'll tell you, I've solved for the axis of symmetry for a very, very, very long time. And every time I do it, I tend to write out the equation so I know what I'm plugging in. So this is -b, so it's the opposite of b. So b is -2, the opposite of that would be +2. Then if I look, I get the A value from right here, that's 1. And if I plug this whole thing into Desmos, I'm going to end up with 1. So that means x equals 1 is my axis of symmetry. So far we're doing pretty good. We've gotten through 3 of our steps. So the 4th step, we have to find, oops, maybe I'll do that in the middle here. We have to find our vertex. Now the good news is we just found out that this is 1 for axis symmetry. That gives you the x value. Now what I have to do is take this 1 and plug it into my equation. So I have y equals x squared minus 2x minus 8. And I'm going to go wherever the x's are, and I'm going to put a 1 in. So this is going to become 1. This x is going to become 1. So now if I take this and I put it into Desmos, I'm going to end up with, hopefully writing on this paper. Holy crap. Okay, there we go. -9. That's going to go here. So your vertex is 1, -9. Okay, now we're going to go through and we're going to make our table. So to make my table, I have x here. I have to put my y equation that I have. So I have x squared minus 2x minus 8. And we said we're hoping to have 5 spots. But the good news is this vertex that I found goes right in the middle of the table. So I know it's going to be 1 and negative 9. So that part's nice because that part's kind of done for me now. Now I just need to figure out the points that come before this and after it. So think about, this is 1. The number that would come before that is 0. The next one would be negative 1. This is 1. If I go forward, this would be 2. And this would be 3. So when I'm doing it, I'm completely focused on where this vertex point is. So now I've got to plug these numbers into the equation. So I have negative 1 squared, oops, minus 2 times negative 1 minus 8. Then I have 0. Then I have 2. Then I have 3. Now the big thing for us is we do need to take these pieces and plug them into Desmos. So if I plug that first one into Desmos, I end up with negative 5, then negative 8. We already have this middle one done. The next one's going to be negative 8 and then negative 5. So these two right here is part of our pattern. Here's our pattern. So because we knew the vertex, we didn't have to keep messing around trying to find it. Okay, so now I'm going to take those points and put them together. And I'm going to turn the page here so I can be able to graph on it. So let me zoom out here. Oh, it just does not want to adjust. Hang on. This is where I need like a commercial announcement. Okay, I'm going to graph on this, maybe. On this grid, I guess maybe I'll just put a piece of graph paper up here so I can move along. Hang on, I'm just getting a piece of graph paper. Oh, would you like 5 million pictures of everything in the world? Let's do this. I guess maybe I can go this way. I can make this side X and this is Y, and I'll just graph. So I'm going to put my points together. So I have negative 1 and negative 5. I have 0, negative 8. I have 1, negative 9. 2, negative 8. And 3, negative 5. So I'm going to go through and go ahead and graph it. So I have 1, negative 1, negative 5, 2, 3, 4, 0, negative 8, 1, negative 9, 2, negative 8, and 3, 5. Now you can see there's the mirror image ones, there's the mirror image ones, and there's your vertex. So then you can go ahead and draw your line through that. Okay, now we have one more to look at. Oh, there it goes now. Now it's going to be all fancy and decide to let me do that. Okay, so I'm going to go to number 2. I'm going to write on it just like I did the last time. All these choices of colors, guys. The struggle's real. Okay, now I'm going to go through and I'm going to do a second equation. So I have y equals x squared minus 6x plus 9. So our first step is to find our a, b, and c. Now realize as I go to look, there's no number in front there. So I do have to assume that's a 1. B would be negative 6, and C would be positive 9. So 1, negative 6, and 9. Okay, so I've got my A, B, and C. Number 2 was to determine if it opens up or down. Since A equals positive 1, and that's a positive value, that means that it opens up and it has a minimum. Step 3, I'm going to go to my axis of symmetry. So I'm going to use that AOS as my axis of symmetry just to make it easier. So it's x equals negative b over 2a. So when I look, I'm looking for negative b, so the opposite of b. So if b is negative 6, it's going to be positive 6. And my a value is 1, so I'm going to put that right here. Now, if I put this whole thing into Desmos, I'd end up with 3. So x equals 3 is my axis of symmetry. Okay, now for step 4, we're going to find our vertex. And we're looking for a point. The good news is we already know this 3 is my x value. So that means I'm going to have to take the equation they gave me and I'm going to have to plug in 3 for every one of these x's. So I'm going to get rid of x squared. I'm going to put a 3 in there. Notice I'm using parentheses. Super important to do that. I'm going to move this x and 3. Then I need to plug that in my calculator. So if I plug that whole thing in my calculator, I end up with 0. So that goes here. So my vertex is 3, 0. So when I go over here on number 5 to make my table, I start with x. Then my y equation is x squared minus 6x plus 9. And I know I want to have 5 spots in my table. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I do know that I'm going to take this vertex and I'm going to put it right in the middle of my table. So I know that's 3, 0. Now I just need to figure out what points come before and after this. So if this is 3, this would be 2 and then 1. Then if I look at after, this would be 4 and then 5. So that's how you're able to get it. Your vertex is going to go exactly in the middle. Then we're going to go through and start plugging these numbers here in for the x. So I have 1 squared minus 6 times 1 plus 9. Then I'm going to plug in 2. Then I plug in 4. And then I plug in 5. See how I didn't even figure anything out? All I did was go through and plug it all in. Now, I do need to take these and plug them into Desmos so I can get one number. So when I plug that first one in, I'll end up with 4. The next one, I'll end up with 1. I already have the middle one done of 3, 0. Then it's going to be 1 and then 4. So notice I have that patterning that we talked about before that we need to have. Okay, let's see if I can manage to turn it this time. Oh, look at that. Hesslau learns from her mistakes. So I'll make this big as I can here. So now I'm going to take those together. Let me make it as big as I can here. And I'm going to make my points. So the first point would be 1, 4. 2, 1. 3, 0. 4, 1. And 5, 4. Again, because I've moved this around a lot, every single time I've graphed, I think you've noticed I've labeled the X and Y just so I know which direction is up when I'm doing this. And now I'm going to go through and graph the points. So 1, 4, 2, 1, 3, 0, 4, 1, and 5, 4. So you see the mirror image points of each one, and there's my vertex. So then we can go ahead and we can make our graph through that. Okay, we're going to practice a couple more of these tomorrow.